Welcome to Sip of Cinema, the jolliest podcast to jingle your bells this holiday season. I'm Alex.
I'm Andres.
And today is our Christmas special. Woo! Oh, man. I'm excited. How about you?
Oh, bro, I'm feeling holly and jolly.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Today, we're going to be talking about what we think are the 5 most quintessential, most influential Christmas movies of all time. American, for sure.
Specifically, yeah.
We're trying to lock in the American Christmas canon, the lore of American Christmas and how it's been popularized. And so that's what we're going to be trying to talk about today.
Yep.
With that being said, Andreas, what are we sipping on?
So when you're feeling holly, when you're feeling jolly, when you feel the Christmas spirit come over you, what do you sip on, Alex?
I sip on eggnog.
I sip on eggnog. That's actually not true. I haven't had eggnog in like 20 years.
You're such a fat liar. Why did you say that?
Listen, y'all are going to get a live reaction on whether or not I like eggnog. Enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy with this stock beef footage.
All right.
Go. Na-na. Na-na.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's delectable, isn't it?
That's pretty delicious.
I think it's fantastic. Shall we cheers?
Well, why shouldn't we?
Merry
Christmas.
Mm.
Okay, so we did eggnog,
Mm-hmm.
spiced rum, whipped cream, and what's the sprinkle?
A little pinch of nutmeg on there.
Yes, which I hope is not a nut. I'm very allergic to nuts. If I go to the hospital, it's because of this.
If he's wearing different clothes in the next couple of minutes, we'll find out soon. So to kick things off today, Andreas, I know that we watched a lot of Christmas movies. We got into the spirit. And I want to know a little bit about some of these questions you had prepared, right? You wanted to talk a little bit, get some dialogue going, a little bit of a diatribe.
There
before
it
we, yep, I had to lock it in there. Before we dive into the five movies that we're going to be locking in for our Christmas canon today. So, lay it on us.
So first things first, I wanted to discuss the rules of what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. Now, Mom, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, but not too much. I love you. We got into a discourse about things that are and aren't Christmas movies. By my definition, if it has a significant scene or Christmas is a significant part of the film, it is a Christmas movie.
Okay, so be honest with me. Is this just the Die Hard conversation?
Not just, but a lot of it.
Okay.
Because, it started with the joke, oh, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. But what really started the conversation going was I said Spencer is a Christmas movie. Now, for those who haven't seen Spencer.
I would be one.
There it is. Came out a few years ago. It's about Princess Diana spending Christmas with the royal family. Now, the whole thing is about Christmas. Christmas is the center point of the film. It's like, that's why they're there. They're celebrating. There's presents, the tree, all the 9 yards. But my mom said that is not a Christmas movie. But she said Harry Potter is a Christmas movie. So, yes, Harry Potter has a Christmas scene in it.
It takes place over the course of an entire year. There's Christmas every year.
Exactly. It's not a focus of the film.
No, not at all.
Spencer has that as a focus of the film. Eyes Wide Shut has that as a focus of the film. Die Hard has that as a focus of the film. They are Christmas movies.
Okay.
I think where people get stuck is everyone wants Christmas movies to be happy specifically.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be the case.
No, it certainly doesn't. And as you're talking about this, the one that really stands out in my mind that I kind of, outside of obviously Die Hard, came prepared to talk about on this topic is Edward Scissorhands. Scissorhands. He's got
Snip.
Well, he's got a lot of scissors on his hands.
Yeah.
But he's only Scissorhand by name. And I guess I was thinking about that because it matched kind of a tempo that I noticed with a lot of these classic Christmas movies that I watched in preparation, which is Christmas is not really a part of the movie until the climax. Christmas spirit becomes the climax of the movie, even though Christmas has almost nothing to do with the rest of the plot of the movie. I think that stands in very stark contrast to Christmas movies today, which
Yeah.
are very much Christmas in your face 24/7 the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Edward Scissorhands, I was thinking about this because it came up on, I think it was Amazon Prime or whatever, the list of Christmas movies that it had to offer. And it was one of the top ones. And I'm like, is Edward Scissorhands what you think of when you think of Christmas movies?
Well, in the same sense, It's a Wonderful Life, which is considered one of the biggest Christmas movies, doesn't even mention Christmas until an hour, 20 minutes into the film.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Well, and neither does even freaking Christmas in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And Christmas is in the title.
Exactly. So I think now, this is a good segue into my next question.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's very much drilled into our brains that it all has to be about Christmas throughout the whole film.
Sure.
For like, look at all the Christmas movies that have come out in the last 20 years or so.
Are we including Hallmark? Because that's an impossible list.
That's a whole different episode, bro. Looking into the formula of their plots, their posters, their title. That's a whole different episode.
Yeah.
But the bigger Christmas movies that have come out in the 21st century are very, very Christmas focused. Elf.
Yeah.
The whole plot is Christmas. Four Christmases, Christmas with the Cranks, stuff like that. And yeah, this started before the 21st century, obviously, but it's been really kicking into overdrive since the turn of the century.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So now I want to bring up a quick point of the commercialization of Christmas in American culture versus the quality of films about Christmas that get pumped out. So when you look at a lot of the earlier Christmas films, like It's a Wonderful Life, White Christmas, things like that, it feels a little more like an actual film. Whereas when you watch something like Christmas with the Cranks, it feels like, oh, this is something to, throw on the TV while you're making Christmas dinner.
It's holiday bait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's holiday bait. Whereas things like It's a Wonderful Life, that's cinema.
That is cinema. That is 100% cinema.
You can't put James Stewart in a movie and not call it cinema.
I will die on that hill. 100%. We're not at ends there, I don't think, at all.
So I want to ask, at what point do we think we hit the mark where America decided that a Christmas movie does not have to be quote unquote cinema, and it can just be a commercial thing, a Christmas special, or just something to throw on for kids, where it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be Christmassy?
That's a fair question. I'm not entirely sure at what point. I will say, as a part of this conversation, I was thinking about this as this was the first year where I watched Miracle on 34th Street. And that was, I think, one of the first times where Christmas was the entire movie. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful Macy's advertisements I've ever seen in my life.
That's what I was about to say. It is essentially a giant commercial.
Yeah, it is, which is crazy because they talk about Mr. Macy in there. And like, I found out that apparently the Macy name has not been tied to Macy's since 1859. Whoa. So they just threw that in there, I guess, to try and add authenticity. When it comes to when that started to change, I would have to say probably the 80s. Yeah. Right? Because I was thinking, you and I were talking before this about how we feel like the quality of Christmas movies has died down over the course of the last several years as malls have started to die down. And I think the commercialization of Christmas movies and then kind of the advent of creating Christmas as Christmas basically is the plot, is the story. And we just kind of find a way to fit characters and plots into that. Comes with the rise of malls and wanting to create the idea of, what could be better for Christmas than getting your child the present that they've always wanted. We happen to have it on sale, that type of mentality. Call me crazy, but I mean, malls really started to take off in the 80s. And I feel like I don't feel unconfident about throwing that out there as a response.
I wouldn't say they started to come up in the 80s, but they definitely peaked around that time.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it.
And that's when we got films like Christmas Vacation. Christmas Story was a little before that, but like films of that nature, that's when they really peaked. And of course we had the claymations that everyone watches growing up, like, well, a little bit before the 80s as well, like 70s, 60s, like sprinkled through there. Yeah, I think that all lines up pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I was thinking less about the rise of malls and more about the rise of mall culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Malls as a hangout spot for the every person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I was doing, as I was kind of looking into this, I was looking at the, I guess, what was up with Miracle on 34th Street,
Mm-hmm.
why it felt that department stores were such a thing for that movie, and I guess just generally what was going on there. And I kind of found out that I would not know this as I was not alive in the 30s. However,
Valid.
department stores like Macy's and other
Bless you.
options. Thank you. Thank you. That eggnog burp hits different, doesn't it? That's gross. The department stores back then, I guess, were more of a hub for basically white women. It was still very much excluding anybody who was of outside race, but they had sewing corners and they had clubs that met at these department stores, and people could go there and do regular activities. It was a department store itself, not a mall collecting a bunch of department stores, was where women hung out. And then you start to see a lot more advertising specifically for women as they start to get into the job force during World War II. And they have their own disposable income and their own needs, and their, the men are off at war or whatever. So it kind of framed for me, I guess, just this evolution of commercialization that I thought was really interesting. And so when it becomes more socially acceptable for more people of different ages and races start hanging out in the same spot, malls grow into a bigger hangout spot. And so does commercialization, because if people are hanging out there anyways, let's get them to spend some money.
I love that you brought that up, because we're going to find pretty consistently throughout all of these movies that two main factors that are going to influence not just the quality, but also the quantity, the common themes, everything like that in different eras of Christmas films is social norms, like you were saying, and also capitalism in general.
Absolutely.
Because Christmas is very much now a holiday that is pushed by capitalism, which directly influences the rise and fall of malls, which influences the amount of Christmas spirit we were saying earlier,
right?
Which influences how heavy they are on certain things in Christmas movies now versus before.
Sure. And I think there are, in my mind, right, I see two prime examples of being complete opposites of each other, right? So when I think about commercialization of Christmas, one of the movies that's going to stand out in my mind pretty immediately, at least in terms of bigger, more commonly known Christmas movies, ones that are on repeat all the time, would be A Christmas Story. Because the whole movie is basically about this kid wants gifts, and the Christmas spirit, which I think would be also an interesting thing to kind of dive into, what Christmas spirit, what that means and how that changes across different movies. In A Christmas Story seems to be getting gifts as a kid and the joy that brings. You go to the department store Santa, you want the Red Ryder BB gun, you'll shoot your eye out, kid, all the classic lines. And there's definitely more going on there. I mean, there's like family dynamics coming together, but a huge aspect of the Christmas spirit in A Christmas Story is gift giving, specifically to children. And the opposite of that, in my mind, is 1966's Grinch, where the Grinch takes all of the toys and all the decorations apart, and they immediately, unlike more common, I guess, newer Grinches, all the Who's gather in Whoville immediately in the morning. They don't even notice. They don't pay attention to any of that decorations. They don't need the ornaments. They don't need the Who's-its and the What's-its and the Fernigans or whatever words Dr. Seuss was making up that time. They immediately gather and they start singing and sharing and celebrating and loving. And it's so interesting to me that the Grinch, who is a miser that became such a kind of like Christmas staple, is actually, that story is almost, I think, a more authentic telling of Christmas spirit, what Christmas spirit is really supposed to be, than so many other Christmas movies that I guess we watch way more often.
Yeah.
Like every year. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. And also it's interesting to look at in the Jim Carrey Grinch, how it's different where the Who's aren't immediately happy as soon as their presents are gone. They are all sad, somber, all that. And it still eventually gets to the same message where it's like, oh, that's not what Christmas is about. But there's a need to remind the characters.
Right.
To remind the audience. Whereas in the 1966 one, the characters don't need to be reminded of that. And I think that just goes with the mentality being different through
100%.
the commercialization of the holiday.
Also the need to draw out a story.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Well, yeah, fill in 2 hours versus fill in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a factor. But I do think there still is a correlation between those two things. I'm so sorry. What was your question again?
I guess just how you felt about kind of the polarity between those two movies. And in general, if you have any thoughts about the different ways that the Christmas spirit is kind of defined across films and maybe even across time. It's like 3 different questions. Sorry, you can start with the first
Jesus
one.
Christ. Well, between the two films, and it's also interesting because there's not that much time between the two films.
No, not at all.
But there is a vast difference. I think Christmas Story also was one of the first Christmas movies that was kind of like, I use the word raw for films a lot when it feels more real, but like where it was kind of honest about the direction Christmas was going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also, it was less common back then to have movies from a kid's perspective specifically. Yeah. And so this was one of the first ones to really do that. And and to be accepted for that, to be popular for doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Without Christmas Story, there's no Home Alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think the film having the willingness to be more real in that sense plays a part. I also think Christmas Story isn't as sugar-coated as The Grinch, because The Grinch is specifically made for kids. Sure, Christmas Story is still a family film, but there's a little
you gotta get
spice.
the adults in there.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that it's
sexy leg lamp, anybody?
Profanity that's censored through fake words.
What?
Sheesh. But the fact that Christmas Story is also made for the adults too, whereas Grinch is just made for the whippersnappers. I feel like that plays a part as well. You're allowed to be more honest. You're allowed to be more straight up about things. What was the second question?
How has maybe the Christmas spirit been defined differently across different movies and even across time as these movies kind of evolve?
Yeah. So Christmas spirit, especially in the earlier black and white films, was, goodwill for all, just being a good person in general. You see that in It's a Wonderful Life, in White Christmas, when they all rally together. Whereas now it's kind of on more of a smaller funnel of focus, Yeah. It's like there's still the conversation of goodwill, helping others and all that, but it's not like for the greater cause in a sense.
It's specifically like for your friends and family.
Yeah.
As opposed to where in It's a Wonderful Life, it's about the community at large.
Exactly. Coming together.
And even to a certain extent, almost any retelling of A Christmas Carol. When you see going through Ghost of Christmas Past, which really gets all the hype. Nobody really talks about Ghost of Christmas Present and Future. Yeah.
Well, Ghost of Christmas Future is spooky.
Ghost, yeah.
No one wants to talk about that.
Very spooky, very spooky. Those movies really focus on Christmas spirit is kind of just the culmination of the way that you have positively touched other people's lives throughout your own life, and how that all kind of comes together into forming these vast relationships, and how you can really come together when you think about the way that your life has had a positive impact on others and vice versa. And you allow yourself to reflect on the positive impact of other people's lives on your own. Naturally, this all is very different from the origin of Christmas, which is obviously Jesus.
Yeah. Dude.
And it's kind of crazy that there's not more movies that focus on that.
Off the top of your head, how many actually like religious Christmas films can you think of?
I can think of Charlie Brown Christmas.
Valid.
That's about it.
Only thing that comes to my mind right away is the nativity scene, which.
Oh yeah.
Also, question: do you say nativity or nativity?
Nativity.
God damn it!
Why?
That's been a very heated debate in my life for the last few weeks. But
I'm so sorry you've had to deal with that.
dog, it's been no. But that's the only Christmas film that I can think of that directly is like, here's Jesus,
Right.
he's born.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's once again capitalism, commercialization.
Yeah, 100%.
All that.
If you want to talk about commercialization of Christmas, let's talk about the fact that you can find endless numbers of Christmas movies out there, and a vast majority of them will never once even touch on anything Bible or Christian related.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, I mean, I don't necessarily think is bad, or I don't have a huge opinion about it, but it does make me really realize how much Christmas is, I guess, just marketed towards me, as opposed to felt, or I guess a little bit more organic.
Yeah, and also you have to, I think a large part of it is the studio being like, we want this to be as accessible to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There are millions of people who celebrate Christmas who are not religious,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I'm sure there's a sense of them being scared of isolating those people by including religion. They can't attract as many families to the theater or to whatever streaming platform if they put in religious things.
Which is fair.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have whatever opinion you have on that. I'm sure if you're religious, you have a different opinion than if you're not religious on that subject. But that has to be considered as well.
Absolutely. I think the point that I'm kind of circling around is that when you do remove the origins of Christianity from Christmas, when you're making a Christmas movie, you have to replace that Christmas spirit with something else. And the way that you choose to portray that or define that in your movie, I think tells a lot about the authenticity of the film as a whole.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I think it's about time maybe we start getting to some ranking.
Ho, ho, ho. Let's go.
Let's go.
Do you want to just jump into what each of our number 5 is, or?
Let's talk a little bit about criteria here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So when it comes to criteria, there's a couple of things I want to note. First of all, this list is supposed to be about the movies that have had the greatest influence on not only other future Christmas movies, but also just public persona, the culture of Christmas, right? How American, specifically, society, because that's what we've got the most of, right? Focuses on Christmas and how we kind of see and perceive everything. Also, for the sake of this list, we will be including specials.
Yep.
And that, so things like Charlie Brown Christmas Movie, The Grinch, Rudolph, you know, those things that are, you could consider a special and maybe not a movie. Letterboxd considers it a movie. If it's on Letterboxd, it's a movie.
Exactly.
So.
Except for those mini series on there.
Right, like Beef.
Yeah, or like documentary series or stuff. Anyways.
That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, anyways. Christmas. So, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to go in reverse order, starting with number 5, what we consider to be in the 5 spot. We're going to throw out movies, and at the end of it, we will have our official top 5 in order, most influential movies, Christmas movies specifically, of all time.
Word.
Now, with that being said, I will pass the mic off to you.
God damn.
Because I want you to kick this off, and I don't want to be the...
we could just rock, paper, scissors it and just count to 3 and then both say them at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think that's interesting for a podcast, though. So maybe...
Bad audio. All right, well, my number 5 pick is going to be the most recent film on my list.
Okay.
And it's still 20 years old.
Yeah.
But my number 5 is Elf. Because Elf is the pinnacle of all 21st century Christmas movies.
Yeah.
It's the most, like we said earlier about commercializing Christmas films, it is the commercialized Christmas film that's come since the turn of the century. It's also the one that's impacted culture in the 21st century by far the most, I would say, unless I'm forgetting something drastic.
No, I think that's fair.
So since its impact is the youngest, that's why I have it at number 5. But I felt it was important to put something that did come out in our lifetime.
See, I went specifically with oldest movies when I was kind of prepping for this. No, I mean, completely different approaches. I don't think is a bad thing.
So I'm wrong.
No, no. I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, Elf has become, I would say, the most recent absolute Christmas classic, the most recent introduction into the fold of Christmas rotations.
And also, I want to say, I'm not the biggest Elf fan in the world. It's not necessarily it's by no means in my top 5 favorite Christmas movies, but just impact specifically. I think it was worth mentioning.
Now, here's maybe why I want to disagree with you.
Okay, lay it on me.
We're going to figure out what's going to go in the 5 spot. We're going to figure it out.
Okay.
But I would say that Elf is the culmination of a lot of other influences.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's the culmination of a lot of other Christmas tropes kind of put together in this really kind of bright, beautiful package that also shows how, mangy New York can be. I don't know if I would be able to put Elf in this list because I think that there are just other bigger influences out there. As I just don't think that Elf has had a big impact on kind of modern Christmas movie watching rotation, but I wouldn't say it's had a huge impact on the image of Christmas.
I feel like you're right. It is the culmination, but I feel like when you get down to it, you could say that about everything on the list that isn't the first whatever,
Sure. I went with the first whatever.
But also I feel like Christmas movies now, when they come out, they want to be the next Elf.
You're not wrong. Okay, so you're thinking 5D chess. You're going into the future. You're not thinking today. You're thinking
no. I'm always thinking forward, brother.
Oh my god.
But
okay.
Like when you release a Christmas movie now, I feel like what you compare it to success-wise is Elf. And that's why I think the cultural impact is big on it. Yeah. It didn't change how the country views the holiday, but it changed how the industry viewed Christmas movies.
Yeah, okay. I don't think you're wrong, actually, in that sense. So, for context, what I was thinking of putting in the 5, right, if I had gone first, would have been A Christmas Story.
I want to talk about that too, but I feel like further down the list.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So... okay, so I'm gonna have to boot something out of my expectations, potentially.
Or maybe I'll have to boot myself 5 times. We don't know.
Well, okay, so I'm curious. Why do you think that A Christmas Story deserves to be further up this list?
Because I feel like I can directly, once again, point at movies that were influenced by A Christmas Story.
Okay.
And also, like we said earlier, it was one of the first times where it was really honest about how the country views the holiday. And that allowed not only movies to view it and talk about it in that way as well, but also allowed people to freely talk about it more. I mean, once again, we were not alive when this movie came out.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would make sense that if during that time period, there was less of a charade when it came to Christmas after that movie. Okay. I mean, that movie openly admits Santa is not real. That movie openly admits that Christmas doesn't go well all the time.
Yeah.
It openly admitted these kids just want their presents.
You may not have gotten a Griswold family Christmas had there not been A Christmas Story.
And that's the film I specifically want to say is heavily influenced by A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation. Without Christmas Story, there's no, obviously, like, you still had Vacation.
Sure.
So naturally, I can't say you wouldn't have gotten Christmas Vacation, but I don't think it would have been the same movie without Christmas Story.
No, and I don't think it would have been nearly as good, quite frankly. I mean, it's hilarious. I think it totally stands out to today.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have convinced me. I will concede the 5 spot to Elf.
Word.
Okay.
Word.
With that being said, I will go ahead and posit my number 4, which is gonna be, and you can call me crazy if you want for having it this low on the list, but at the end of the day, there's freaking a billion Christmas movies out there. So what do you want me to say? I'm going to put Miracle on 34th Street in the 4 spot.
Okay. Now let me hear your reasoning. Okay.
So my reasoning for Miracle on 34th Street is that I think that it was the first Christmas movie, at least that I could find, right? I'm a fallible human being. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's the first Christmas movie I could find that did make Christmas the entire movie. It focused on not only Christmas the entire movie, but it actually never really proved. You've seen Miracle on 34th Street, right?
Yeah. I mean, not in the last few years, but yeah, I've watched it more than once.
Yeah, they legally, spoiler alert, if you've, haven't watched this in the last 100 years that it's been around, but you legally prove that Santa exists. However, the Santa character never actually states whether he exists or not. And the spirit of Christmas, or I guess the point of the movie, really is about belief and faith, and kind of taking a leap of faith, and not only on yourself, but on the people around you, trusting them, and generally being a little bit more giving, and less. It's weird for a movie that is basically a Macy's commercial. It really tries to get the point across that the point of Christmas is to not be commercial and not try and, I guess undercut others. And I think that is something that you don't get out of any Christmas movie before this, and you get a lot in Christmas movies after this.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say Miracle on 34th Street is, I think it's absolutely a classic. It's probably not in my top 5 either of favorite Christmas movies. However, I think you would be hard pressed to tell me that it doesn't belong at the very least on this list.
See, I don't have it in my list at all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't have Elf, so here we are.
Yeah. Look where we find ourselves, in the same spot. I don't know. I think the fact that it very much is a commercial was a big reason why I didn't want to put it on my list. But also, I feel like that's a little fallible on my own sense, because that kind of makes it deserve to be on the list. I just think...
I mean, we just spent like 15 minutes talking about the commercialization of Christmas. And here we have the beginning of that. We're not talking about had the best impact on Christmas, right? We're just but the biggest impact.
Right. But also, I feel like the other movies I'm going to mention, I feel like are still talked about a lot, constantly.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like Miracle on 34th Street. I feel like I don't hear people talk about that film like I do other films that I'm going to bring up.
Okay.
I feel like everyone's going to talk about a lot of the films that we've talked about previously on this episode.
Sure. You can throw out movies that you want to bring up later on the list.
Yeah, like
it's
the
not
Claymations that we grew up on, or like It's a Wonderful Life, or things like that. I feel like those are talked about a lot. Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation. But I feel like Miracle on 34th Street's kind of died down.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't see it played as much on television when ABC Family, or whatever they changed the channel's name to, does their 25 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not something some movies get played multiple times. I feel like Miracle on 34th Street isn't one that they know is going to bring in audiences.
Sure. It is definitely one that's been remade a ton, though.
Exactly. So that's another thing we have to consider. The amount of times it's been remade.
Yeah. Miracle on 34th Street has been remade at least 4 times.
So how much do we think remakeability, or the amount of times something's been remade, should factor in its placing? How much weight does that have in your eye?
Well, I mean, if it's been remade a bunch of times, then their demand has been there, right? And maybe you could make the argument, and I think this would be fairly valid, that remakes are not the end all be all, and do not actually factor in as a huge response to demand, because people pump out something that's been done before. They just want to cling on to the name. And it's kind of more of a cash grab than it is a response to audiences demanding more movies that are, essentially just a fresher version of one we've seen before. However, how many times has A Christmas Carol been remade, or Scrooge, or Scrooged, or Scrooge McDuck, or something like that been remade a million times? And that absolutely is in response to maybe not specifically audience demand, but the fact that the audience will keep lapping it up.
Yeah.
I think that Miracle on 34th Street has probably not been remade as much as other Christmas movies have, but I feel fairly confident in saying that we're not going to throw other movies on this list like White Christmas, or Christmas in Connecticut, or a couple of those other older movies that are technically like Christmas classics that we could have thrown on this list. Because not only is nobody talking about them, nobody's remaking them.
Yeah.
And they did not wind up having the staying power that something like A Miracle on 34th Street did.
Okay, that's valid. That's super valid. All right, so let me pitch mine. I feel like I'm going to lose here because I cheated on my number 4 a little bit.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I didn't pick one movie.
Okay.
I just picked the Claymations in general.
Okay.
Like Rudolph, Year Without a Santa, all that. Because I feel like that is what...
Doc, are you going to undercut me with every
Yes.
Claymation. That's such,
Yes.
that's such a trash move. Why would you do that?
Well, I'm doing it, bro.
That's terrible.
But
Bro.
I mean, if you want me to pick one specifically, sure, I can pick Rudolph.
Fine. Yeah, pick your best representation.
Okay, I'll pick Rudolph. I'll pick Rudolph.
Yeah, I think.
But
that's,
I'm really
that's fair.
I'm letting the record show that I'm actually picking all the claymations.
Yeah, well,
but
we're not
on
in a
paper,
courtroom.
Rudolph.
Okay, so
when you grow up as a whippersnapper, you remember those days.
sure, I whipped, I snapped.
Exactly. When you're a kid and you come home and you watch Christmas movies on TV, you are watching the claymations. That is the pipeline of children Christmas spirit right there.
Yeah, and you want to talk about influences on Elf?
Exactly.
The whole North Pole is just
in
claymation.
that style.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then also, I feel like those claymations have heavy impact on every Christmas special ever.
Okay.
Even like the Dr. Seuss, the Grinch animated one in the 60s. Every TV show Christmas episode. I mean, Rudolph is probably, besides Santa, the most recognizable Christmas icon.
Absolutely.
Kicks Frosty's ass.
Which is why I have Rudolph higher on the list.
See, I don't think we should put Rudolph higher on the list.
You're going to have to convince me.
Bro,
because you just made your own point.
I don't know.
You just made your own point that Rudolph was more influential than Miracle on 34th Street. So you're going to have to tell me that something else higher up on your list is worthy of making Miracle on 34th Street not even a part of the top 5.
I feel like all 5 of my top 5 make it not worthy of the top 5.
Okay, well, convince me. Lay it on me.
Well, I feel like to convince you, I have to say my number 3.
Fuck. Yeah, we got to lock in our number 4 before we move on. Those are kind of our rules.
I think it's more essential to have Rudolph than it is to have Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, but I can't concede twice in a row.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay, fine. Only because I feel so freaking confident that we're going to have the exact same number 1.
I don't think we do.
Really?
I really don't.
Oh, okay, you're going to have some
because I cheated on my number 1 too.
Oh, God, I hate you. Okay. Well, this is turning a disaster, but fine. I have to agree. Rudolph is more influential than Miracle on 34th Street. However, if you don't convince me on the number 3 spot, I will be bringing Miracle on 34th Street back.
I don't think you're allowed to do that. You know what? Fine. No, it's okay. It's okay. We can edit.
We're making the penultimate list. We don't have to go in order of our. Yeah. Okay. So, anyways. Okay, fine. So we got freaking Elf, and then we've got Rudolph as a representative for every claymation, apparently. Off the rails so far. Number 3, it's your turn, I guess. Pitch.
Number 3, I believe, is A Christmas Story. Why are you laughing? What's so funny about that?
We couldn't do that. Okay, yeah. No.
What do you mean I said we couldn't do that?
No. Okay, yeah. You said that it was gonna be. You said it was gonna be higher up on the list. Okay, so tell me, Christmas Story.
Well, I feel like I already made a lot of the points earlier when we were talking about number 5.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, films like Christmas Vacation. Ooh, sorry for the vibration there. Films like
Oh, sorry.
Anyways, films like A Christmas Vacation. Or other comedies of that sense are all heavily influenced by A Christmas Story. It was transparent about how the holiday is viewed in the country. It allowed people to feel like they could be open about how they feel about the holiday. It said Santa isn't real. Also, arguably the most quoted or referenced Christmas film, bar Elf.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, you shoot your eye out, kid. Red Ryder BB gun. I stuck my tongue to the ice. Yeah,
the bunny suit, you know, all that stuff. It just, I don't know. I just feel like it is the number 1 influence on Christmas comedies.
Yeah.
It is the number 1 Christmas comedy in general. So, I mean, like, I feel like that has to be put on the list.
I was wishy-washy about at least one of the films that I had on my kind of personal pick of the top 5. But I do feel very confident about having A Christmas Story on this list. And there are 2 movies that I am about to go very, very hard on for the 2 and the 1 spot.
I also am going very hard on my number 2 and number 1.
So I will posit this to you, good sir. I will give you a hearty handshake on just letting it slide. Christmas Story, 3 spot. Love it. Oh, beautiful. But get ready for the fire. Get ready for the ice. Okay? How do you feel about that?
Wait, so you're just not going to say what your number 3 was?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was going to have more than one claymation on my top 5.
Oh,
so.
valid.
But I want a Christmas Story on this list.
Okay.
And I feel like these next 2 are, I feel like Christmas Story has to be on this list, and these next 2 are going to be like I'm really about to go hard on.
Okay.
So, gentleman's handshake.
Wait, what was going to be number 3?
Gentleman's handshake.
Wait, no, you can't just. You're doing the listeners a disservice.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Number 3 was actually, I guess, not technically claymation, but was going to be Charlie Brown Christmas.
Oh.
Because much like we talked about, it is one of the only ones that actually harkens or cares about telling, I guess, the Christian story of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a big point of it. It's adorable. I have a lot of personal sentimentality with it because I very much, me and my family, even today, go out of our way to watch, the Charlie Brown specials for every big holiday. So I have a real big personal connection with it, but also it feels a little bit disingenuous to not have at least one kind of Christian story within the top 5 Christmas. That being said, as it is an absolute classic, I don't think I could qualify it as more influential than A Christmas Story. So that's why I'm willing to concede.
So I win?
Yeah, you win 3 in a row. Good for you. Okay.
So overall, I win.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Fair enough. On to the next. I have to say, I'm going to put in number 2 my personal favorite Christmas movie. I had not seen this before getting ready for this episode, but we've mentioned it enough. It's going to be on the list. I feel very confident about that. Is going to be It's a Wonderful Life.
That's my number 2.
Is that your number 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I win 4.
Well, but no, because I won.
Well, no, I won 4.
No, but I said it first.
But I got 4
right,
so far.
But I said it first.
Doesn't matter because I also said it, so I get 4 points.
The Christmas spirit. I'm trying to hone it, bring it in.
Say your spiel, though.
Okay, so the reason why I put It's a Wonderful Life in the number 2, I guess I should say it feels very obvious to have it on this list, but let me say why I put it on number 2 instead of number 1. It's a Wonderful Life is such an absolute Christmas classic. I don't think that it's more influential than the pick that I'm going to have in my number 1, but it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. I think the idea of this film kind of being about this person who, at the end of the day, It's a Wonderful Life is really about someone coming to understand gratitude for the everyday aspects of their life, for the people in their community, for the impact that they're able to have, and kind of that back and forth like I was talking about earlier when it comes to like the relationships that you have and how that can tie into Christmas movies. I think that It's a Wonderful Life is kind of the ultimate and original focus on that, of community being what Christmas is about the people being what Christmas is about. And then it just kind of climaxes on Christmas. I think I could be crazy. I could be wrong, but I think it's also kind of where that trend of, or I guess not trend, but trope of snow falling at the climax of Christmas. It just hasn't been snowing. And then all of a sudden it snows, and the symbolism there, I think is beautiful. And you can see that all throughout Christmas movies throughout history.
It's White Christmas, you know?
Absolutely, which crazy movie. Well,
yeah, that movie was insane.
Let's talk about a little bit about that after we're done with our list, because I want to have a couple movies I want to touch on before we quit. But
cool.
That is why I have It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, this person learns. I think also. Sorry, backing up. It's a Wonderful Life, I think, deserves to be in the number 2 spot because it really shows, I think, better than almost any other movie that I've seen. Christmas spirit in a really authentic way. And what I mean by that is gratitude for your own life, gratitude for everybody else. There's really no presence, no commercialization at all in that movie. In fact, it's really quite the opposite. It's about trying to keep small business alive, going against the classic trope of the Christmas miser, and how we can work together to create beautiful bonds and live a beautiful life together, and about appreciating it. And how that is what the Christmas spirit is about appreciating what you have and not wishing. It's nice to have dreams. It's nice to want to go backpack Europe like George Bailey does. It's nice to want to get out of your small business or your small town and go do something big. But if those opportunities don't come for you because you have to, say, for example, take care of like a sick relative, or you just any number of things happen in your life, that does not mean that things have fallen apart. And I think Christmas is supposed to be about taking a pause to appreciate what you have. And It's a Wonderful Life is the penultimate example of that, in my opinion.
100%. This is the only thing I've agreed with you so far on this list. But but I just want it to be said that when it comes down to just quality of a film, no Christmas movie comes anywhere close to It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
James Stewart, I bow to that man. He's, I'll say, my second favorite actor of all time, behind only Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
But dude, the writing of that film, granted, I know it's based off of a book, like many of these movies are, but the writing of the film itself, the pacing of it, the acting, dude, just when that movie finished, I was watching it alone in the living room this morning before we recorded, and Mariah was in the bedroom just doing her thing. The credits started rolling. I walked into the bedroom, tears coming down, snot coming out of my nose, bro. Yeah. I was doing the 5-year-old. Like, bro, I was going through it. And no other film on this list does anything like that to me. Also, I love a great anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism message.
100%, 100%. And you know what? I feel you, George Bailey. I too want to lasso the moon for my girl, you know?
Bro, what a romantic.
Oh my gosh,
God,
dude.
Bro.
And I also feel like it's one of the times where, you know, there are other examples of this, but I feel like they did this really well and it felt really authentic, his kind of like come around. Because in reality, George Bailey is absolutely a humanitarian. He really is a philanthropist and wants to help out his community. But on a day-to-day level, he's kind of an asshole. He's kind of an ungrateful asshole.
Bro, his snide remarks, bro.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's even before the very end of the movie where he kind of like gets into it with his own family, right? He's kind of just an ungrateful asshole, but he, when it comes down to it, when it really matters, would give everything to help people, to save the people that he cares about, because even though he won't admit it, he does care about them. Oh man. And it's just, and it didn't have to be a musical.
Yes, dude. Yes. Oh my God.
It didn't have to be a musical. And for that alone, I'm grateful.
Dude, because I mean, I love musicals. I love tap dancing. I love a little number. I love a little hoo, hoo, hoo. But when I was watching White Christmas, I know we said we were going to talk about this after, but
we're here. Let's
How many musical numbers can you throw in that have nothing to do with the movie?
Oh, absolutely nothing. There was one dance in particular where I think she the main actress is in a like purple dress, and it's literally just like thrown in there. There's not even a transition to or from the dance number.
Bro, it's what they use to move the plot. They're like, okay, we did this scene, dance number, now do another scene.
Yeah, at a certain point I was like, okay, White Christmas, yeah, but when is the Christmas part?
Which also you can say about It's a Wonderful Life. Like I said earlier, you don't get Christmas mentioned at all until an hour, 20 minutes into the film.
Sure. But in my mind, you know, if you're going to have a Christmas movie, and maybe I've been conditioned by this, but if you're going to have a Christmas movie and it's going to be a musical, the musical numbers better be about either Christmas or love, not just anything, right? Yeah, and I guess that's just a critique of movies in general. Like you can't just throw in stuff that has nothing to do with the movie, and they did that. To be fair though, the dances and the costuming were gorgeous,
bro.
They were beautiful in A White Christmas, but not a great Christmas movie.
I will say, I think her name's Vera Ellen, the one sister. they just really trusted her to do so much better than every other actor in every musical number.
100%.
She carried that movie, bro.
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever they paid her was not enough.
Yeah, when I was watching that movie with Coco, I mean, we were literally like jaw on the floor every time she would like flip and do just these crazy things and heels and just like absolutely fantastical numbers. I guess we're, building up anticipation for the number 1 pick, but but it was beautiful. And then it kind of, you remembered what you were supposed to be watching in the first place. And you're like, wait a minute. The problem is really that it takes you out of the movie. The numbers themselves are gorgeous.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Shout out Bing Crosby, I guess, too.
Shout out, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to get to our number 1 now?
Yes. And unfortunately, I let you lead and burdened you with that. So now you're the first person that's going to be able to make your justification for the number 1 spot. But beware, I'm coming with the heat.
All right. So like I said, I cheated a little bit on my number 1.
Yeah.
Similar to how I said all claymations, I'm going to say every version of A Christmas Carol.
Dude, that's so funny. My number 1 pick is specifically the 1938 A Christmas Carol.
Alex, am I wrong to say that I got every single spot on this list?
I hate you. Why did you think we would have differing opinions on the number 1 spot? Did you think I was going to put It's a Wonderful Life in the number 1?
No, I just didn't think you would. I think because I didn't specifically pick one version, you would find one film that on its own had more weight or something like that.
You would be so hard pressed to find anything more influential than A Christmas Carol,
bro,
as a story, right? And I chose 1938's version of A Christmas Carol because it's the first American one that was ever made, right? Technically, Scrooge came out before then. In 1935 was the first time that Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol was ever put into film. That was a British version. It was only an hour, and I had to watch the color version. So yeah, for those reasons, I'm choosing the 1938 version, which is I think popularly known as the first one. I think far more people would watch that before they would think of Scrooge, from the 1935 one as the thing. But when you're getting into the influences of why it deserves that number 1 spot, I mean, you would not have Grinch without A Christmas Carol. You wouldn't have anything that ever, and you could just say that this is popularized from the actual book, and I think that that's super fair. But the fact is, A Christmas Carol in general, every time you see a Christmas miser, that came from A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life has a miser
as the main character. When the main character is someone who's a grump, and they're turning into, I guess, the person that's boosting Christmas spirit, and they kind of flip their perspective on what Christmas can really be about. That is A Christmas Carol in different flavors and different forms.
I mean, listen, man, all I'm going to say is if the Muppets do a version of your story, you're a big deal.
You kind of won.
I'm also, I wouldn't have been surprised if you picked the Muppets one specifically as your number 1, because goddamn, that is beautiful stuff.
That is cinema. That is absolutely cinema. I mean, yeah, we may need an entire Muppets episode, to be honest.
That's honestly not a bad idea.
I would be so happy to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can't go any. I don't think you can go a single year without seeing some version of A Christmas Carol or its influences in a Christmas movie. Quite frankly, even probably outside of Christmas as well. I mean, it is just that big. Now, since we agree on this, and I'm not going to give you any leeway to talk more about how you got every spot on this list.
Oh, I'll find a way.
I don't think you will. I want to know why you think, what is the draw to A Christmas Carol? Why does that wind up being the one that just feels so obvious?
I mean, because essentially what this list comes down to is we were talking about influence, impact, everything like that. And as you've very detailed, very in-depth, as you've said, it has by far the most impact. Not only does it have the most versions of itself directly made, you got the Muppets version, you got the Mickey Mouse version, you got the 3D version, you got several different live action versions, you got the Bill Murray one. Like, it's actual details, story elements, and everything like that, as you just said, have been utilized more than any other Christmas film. And it'd be hard to find any film in general that hasn't been remade as much or been borrowed from as much. Or
certainly remade as much. You know,
Yeah.
if we're talking about remakes and audience appeal, when we were talking about Miracle on 34th Street, what I was biting my tongue about was if we're going to talk about how remakes play into how impactful a movie is, then A Christmas Carol, boy, is like the example. So, yeah, I guess there you have it. So, in order, I guess our 5 is
my 5. All right, that's the last time I'm going to say. That's the last time I'm going to say.
All right, you won. So go for it. Tell everybody the list, the final list.
Number 5, Elf. Number 4, Rudolph, but in general, all claymations, but specifically Rudolph. Number 3, A Christmas Story. Number 2, It's a Wonderful Life. Number 1, Christmas Carol.
Okay, so honestly, it's not that far off from my list either, to be honest. I mean, my list was A Christmas Story in the 5. It was going to be, yeah, I mean, it's just, whatever, shut up. Anyways, so.
Honestly, bro, I was so close to conceding that, like, you know what, maybe I should switch Rudolph in A Christmas Story. But then I just didn't want to give you the satisfaction.
Yeah, thanks for the Christmas joy, generosity.
No worries, man.
You got it. So, are there any movies that weren't maybe in the top 5 of most influential that you want to highlight that you like watched, or maybe even just want to have a funny little hee hee ha ha about?
So going back to the conversation we had earlier, I meant to bring this up earlier, but when we were saying what qualifies as a Christmas film and does it have to be happy, holly jolly? Something I watched in preparation for this was Black Christmas.
Right, and I haven't seen it, so you're gonna have to really carry the weight for this.
It is the textbook definition of a slasher film. Takes place in a sorority house right before everyone goes on Christmas vacation.
Sure.
And there's just a dude who essentially has set up shop in their attic and is coming downstairs and murdering them.
Okay.
And it's like every slasher element is in this film. Pardon me. And it's just also, interestingly enough, I believe, I might be wrong here, but it's directed by the same person who did A Christmas Story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is just funny.
That's so weird.
I know. but so that just, I want to use that as a reinforcement that a Christmas film does not have to be happy.
No, it certainly does not. I mean, there are quite a few Christmas slashers out there. I wouldn't say that I've spent too much time watching them, quite frankly. I can't really speak to them too much, but there are a lot out there, surprisingly. Another movie that I haven't seen that I really want to, and maybe you've seen it, is Jack Frost.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
So that one's like, again, I haven't seen it, but I do know that it has kind of a cult following, but also that people tend to not like it for some reason.
You talking about the animated one?
Yeah, no. Jack Frost, as in Jack Frost the Snowman.
Frosty?
No.
Are you talking about the Michael Keaton movie?
Yeah.
I will not watch that movie, bro.
Okay.
I will.
Okay, so neither of us have seen it, so we're not going to talk about it.
No, I want to talk about it. Every time the trailer for that film came on.
Yeah.
Every bone in my body told me to close my eyes. That animation is terrifying. I will not watch that movie.
Okay, fair enough. To this day.
No. I won't. I love Michael Keaton, though.
Yeah, fair enough.
Birdman's a great movie.
Who doesn't love it? So I guess I guess that's our list. I mean, I watched other movies for this, like Meet Me in St. Louis. I watched Christmas in Connecticut. Both of those were really pretty. You know, Meet Me in St. Louis has Judy Garland in it, which, you know, she kills it like she always does. But to be honest, kind of forgettable in other ways. So absolute classics. Go check them out if you want to. But certainly not nearly as impactful as some of the other classics that we've talked about today.
I do also want to once again shout out Spencer. That's a great movie.
Okay, yeah.
Not a happy movie by any means. But goddamn, Kristen Stewart got robbed of an Oscar.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, I do. Okay, so there are 2 other Christmas movies I want to shout out before we go ahead and just list off our favorites that we want to recommend to people and wrap up. So obviously we've talked about National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation today. that is like an absolute staple in my household. My dad actually still has he has those the moose mugs that they drink their eggnog from.
Sick.
So that's breaking out this year. Super funny. Another classic in our household that I think is a little more taboo would be Bad Santa.
Oh, word. I've never seen Bad Santa, but I know people
Santa?
like it.
Dude, I think it's hilarious. And anytime you get Bernie Mac in a Christmas movie, I'm going to be here for it, quite frankly.
Fair.
I think that it's super funny. It is mad raunchy though. So I wouldn't throw it on for the full family. But those are two Christmas comedies that are a staple in my household, and gotta love them. Certainly not the most impactful in the world, but
valid,
but beautiful nonetheless.
Sick. I don't really have any other actually like Christmassy ones I want to shout out. I do want to shout out Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah,
I love that movie. You know, also the sense of mystery that, you know, Stanley Kubrick died before it was finished.
Sure.
And just that whole appeal to it, and like, I don't know, who doesn't love a good cult film? You know,
so
masked
true.
people, opera singers, like organ music, heebie-jeebies, but also holly jollies.
Wow. Heebie-jeebies and holly jollies.
Yeah, man.
What more could you ask for? All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start wrapping up. What would be your biggest Christmas recommendation? Doesn't necessarily have to be from our most influential list.
I mean, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Well, should we both pick a different one then to make it less boring?
No, we do that every episode.
That's fair.
Let's hold our ground today.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. It's a Wonderful Life. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. Beautiful film.
If you want snotties and tears, that's the one for you.
Way to sell it. Thanks. All right. With that being said, that's a wrap on today's episode. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you liked today's episode, go ahead and follow us wherever you're listening and or watching to us at us on. That was convoluted. Sorry. And if you didn't like it, that's okay. We still love you. It's just getting a little bit less every time.
I don't love you.
Yeah.
Well, Merry Christmas. I do love you.
Yeah. All right. Cheers,
Cheers
buddy.
to that.